You know, when you're growing up and you're in high school and everybody's talking about what they want to do when they go to college? I had no idea. I had a chemistry teacher in high school who I really liked, and I really enjoyed her class. I'm like, I'm going to go into college as a chemistry major. I took one math class and realized that it was just not the right move for me as a chemistry major, and just stayed with it. But I think in reality, I had known since I was a kid. I love reading, I love writing, I love books.
You went to school to study chemistry, and then something happened along the way that you said, you know what, I'd rather be a writer.
I was a scientist, I did inside sales, I did tech support, I was a recruiter.
Oftentimes we talk about changes in careers. Some people are kind of stuck. They're working in jobs where probably not the right situation for them, but they're in this kind of level of comfort. They're just going with the flow, not really happy. What do we do?
So,
hey, this is Arthur Olshansky back with a new episode of Klik TV. I'm so excited to have with me Faye Rivkin from Faye Write. So Faye got introduced to us. She is an amazing content writer. The interesting thing I learned about Faye this morning is that we grew up in the same area, both from Randallstown, and we're still here. So Faye, thank you for joining us.
thank you for having me.
Yep. You know, one of the interesting things I found out was that, you know, you went to school to study chemistry and actually completed studies and was a chemist, right? And then something happened along the way that you said, you know what, I'd rather be a writer and I want to write. Can you share a little bit about what happened? What was that spark, right, that got you into this?
You know, when you're growing up and you're in high school and everybody's talking about what they want to do when they go to college? I had no idea. I had a chemistry teacher in high school whose name I cannot remember, who I really liked, and I really enjoyed her class. I'm like, I'm going to go into college as a chemistry major. I took one engineering class, one math class, and realized that it was just not the right move for me. But I think in reality, I had known since I was a kid. I mean, I love reading, I love writing, I love books. So when I was an 8-year-old, I wanted to be a librarian. But I, like any child, kind of got pushed into a bunch of different directions, got to college, University of Delaware, and started as a chemistry major and just stayed with it. Although I probably, in full disclosure, probably should have switched majors at some point. Didn't do a whole lot of writing in college other than an occasional chemistry paper or rewriting my nursing major roommates' papers. But yeah, just kind of started as a chemistry major and worked my way into this.
Faye, thank you for sharing that. That's awesome. Myself, career changer, right? Like I just mentioned. You know, I think one of the things that makes you unique, right, is there's a lot of information, a lot of written information, right? But I think it's very important to be able to deliver written information or even convert written to verbal communication for it to be clear. What do you think about when you're developing content to kind of deliver that clarity, that clear message?
It's kind of interesting, and people often smile when I say this, but having started as a chemist and starting as a technical person actually helps me in the career that I'm in now. I was a scientist, I did inside sales, I did tech support, and then I was a recruiter for a while.
Wow.
And working as a recruiter, I learned to ask a lot of questions. And kind of peel back the layers to get to the information, and gathering the information, asking you the right questions to get at the information that needs to be on the page. I take that information and then I translate it into that audience appropriate language. And that's the piece that's really hard, is making it whether it's an audience of engineers or an audience of English professors or scientists, I need to make sure that I write it in a way that they're going to understand. And so it's taking that technical concept and turning it into audience appropriate messaging, but leaving out acronyms, leaving out technical concepts, leaving out jargon, unless it's absolutely necessary. And if it's necessary, then including it with a short definition, but where possible, short paragraphs, short sentences, and kind of avoiding all the big technical stuff.
I think we discussed a little bit earlier about, you live in one of my favorite parts of Baltimore City, which is in Hamden. I spent actually a lot of time in my youth not too far off of 36th.
Okay.
Right. And there's a couple of restaurants and bars there and some nightclubs. There was even a 7-Eleven where we used to hang out right on the corner.
Which is still there.
Still there. Nothing has changed. You know what I mean? But how has like living in Baltimore, particularly like Hamden, how has that influenced some of your writing?
So I left Baltimore right after high school. I went to college in Delaware. I lived in New Jersey, a couple different places. And
Where in New Jersey?
In Plainsboro for 6 years, and then Morristown,
Morristown
for 6 years. And then I ended up in San Diego and lived there for about 6 years. Loved it, loved the environment, loved the people I met, but it never felt like home. There was something about me. I'm very much an East Coast person. I mean, you could tell I kind of talk fast, I walk fast, I journey fast, and San Diego just never felt like home. And there was a pull to come back. But it's funny, like being here, it feels comfortable. Interestingly, I don't interact with a lot of people that I knew growing up, but the people that I interact with now, I have a group, like a core group of women, and we meet a couple of times a month, and we work at a coffee shop near us, and we just sit and we'll work, and then we'll pick our heads up and we'll bounce some ideas off each other, and then we'll go back to work. And it's just, there's a comfort level about being here that I didn't have anywhere else. And it's hard to, like, you grew up here, so you can kind of understand it. I seriously was never coming back. And there was just something that drew me back. And I came back, and now it's just a comfort. It
feels like home.
It feels like home. It finally feels like home.
You know, oftentimes we talk about changes in careers. Some people are kind of stuck, right? They're working in jobs where it's probably not the right situation for them, but they're in this kind of level of comfort, right? And they're just going with the flow. Not really happy. Maybe you can kind of give some guidance, maybe some ideas, like for those people, right, that are stuck. What do we do?
It's very easy to get comfortable, and I am not one who likes to be comfortable. So I'm all about, like, picking up new skills, trying new things. I did chemistry, I did inside sales, I did tech support. I tried work as a recruiter because I loved talking to people. I recruited for a chemical company. I staffed a 250-person call center for a chemical company. And I was all about trying new things. I am always of the mindset, like, my mom ran her own business, my dad, my brother, my stepfather, everybody had their own businesses. And so I was the only one who sort of had this, like, comfortable kind of 9-to-5 job, but always in the back of my head knew I loved writing. I had been writing since I was a kid, and had the chance when I was a recruiter to write an HR manual for the call center, and then for the company. And I am all about, it's never too late to try something new. Even if you think you're going to fail, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Yeah.
You fail. And when I started writing, so what happened with me is I had all these jobs, and then I got laid off 3 times in 5 years. And I was living in California, and the third time I was like, you know what? I'm not doing this again. And so the art director from the company I was working for, it was an Israeli-owned telecom company that no longer exists, that tech boom sent it flying. He got laid off at the same time. And so we would bid on jobs together. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't have a plan. He would go and talk about the art and the print, and this was in the early 2000s. And so we would actually go and meet with clients, and I just went for it. And my feeling from there, I developed a large following. I had clients on the West Coast, I had clients on the East Coast. It's just, when you talk to people about what you love, like, people know, and they trust you, and they're open to having you take on a project or try something new, because they can see it in you, and they know that it's something you enjoy, and it's something you get a lot out of. And so my thing has always been, like, it's never too late, you're never too old. I was 40 when I went back to school. And part of the reason I went back to school is because I would bid on these jobs, and people would say, you have a degree in chemistry? How can you possibly know what I need to know in my, my engineering blog post or my sales material? And so I knew, because I'd been doing it for, 15 years at that point. But I went back to school. I was 40. I was the oldest person by probably 10 years. So
I keep threatening to go back to school and join a fraternity.
not sure.
There was a movie, I don't know if you remember, there was a movie Old School where they all went back to college.
They all went back, yeah.
That would be me probably if I went back to school. But I agree with you. Like, interesting topic I wanted to discuss with you is ghostwriting.
Okay.
How, what preparation do you take to kind of really make sure that you're delivering a message that could come from another person?
So most of what I do is ghostwritten or under NDA. So people are going to have no idea that I wrote it. So the ultimate goal is to make a person, a company look like a thought leader, to show them as the thought leader that they are. And so for me, running my own business and having to get up to speed quickly on a lot of different topics, it goes back actually to my time as a recruiter. Mm-hmm. I ask a lot of questions. I'm not afraid to ask follow-up questions. I can talk to anyone from the CEO of a company to a lab technician and everyone in between. So it's all about figuring out what the message is, figuring out who you need to talk to, where you need to get the information from, and then pulling that information out and writing it on a page, on a web page, in a blog post in a way that shows this person or the organization in the light that they're supposed to be in.
I'm going to ask you a question right now off topic.
Yeah.
Faye, one of the interesting things that's happening these days, it's affecting our technology world as a whole, but really affecting business. I think you know where I'm heading.
I know where you're going with
this question. So obviously AI, right? How has that affected your industry?
When it first came out, so is it like 2 years at this point, sort of? There was a sort of, everybody put the brakes on. Mm-hmm. Like, do we need you, or can AI write our blog posts? Can AI write our web copy? So there was a bit of a pause. And there's still people are still figuring out exactly how it's going to work. Yes, I absolutely believe there's a place for it. Full disclosure, I use ChatGPT at times if I'm stuck for an idea, or I'm stuck for a word, or I need a better way to say something. I'll go and I'll ask an AI platform. But there are things it can't do. Mm-hmm. It can't have the conversation we're having.
Yeah.
It can't yet write in a humane, authentic voice. It can absolutely write. It can draft. But it can't, I don't believe, and a lot of the other writers that I work with don't believe it can produce yet the final version. Mm-hmm. So yes, it has its place. I think there is still a lot of where does it fit? Mm-hmm. I've heard I've been reading things, companies saying, oh, we're going to let all our writers and all our marketing people go, and we're going to do everything using
just have operators, right? Yeah.
And just have, input it and AI will spit it out. I don't see, I have a friend who's writing a blog about AI and the absence and the need for humane AI. And so, yes, I think it can write, but it is just, I don't personally believe, and maybe I have my head in the sky, but I don't believe it's there yet.
We talked a little bit about your background, right? For example, you gave staffing, recruiting for a chemical company, and knowledge that you had specifically as a chemist yourself, how that helped your customer and helped you identify the right types of candidates and help you be successful in that initiative. Some of the other stuff that you did. How does your background, right, your education, previous experience, how does that benefit your customers, right, in ability to write? And is that a competitive edge for you?
I definitely think it's a competitive edge. I mean, 25 years later, I still have a business that's going strong and growing. I think for me, it allows me to get up to speed quickly. It allows me to, if I don't understand a topic, if it's a topic I haven't researched before, I have experience in a lot of areas. And so I have no problem jumping into a new area, researching, asking questions. And I think having this varied background in the sciences, having worked in finance, technology, it just gives me the ability to dive deep and to get into the details and to stay on top of details. So like I said before, with a quote or a statistic, like, you have to give me the source. I'm not just going to put a piece of information out there. I have to know where it came from. I have to know what it means, who it affects. So my edge is I am that person who can take the information out of your head, put it on paper. I'm going to rely on you to make sure it's correct, but I'm going to do that. I'm that first line. I'm going to just do all of the background so that when it comes to you, you can feel pretty comfortable that what I'm giving you is good to go.
I think like one of the important things is in the collaboration that you may have with your client is your ability to ask clarifying questions, to reconfirm certain things, which only will create a better output of the response, right? The content itself.
It's like, are you sure that's what you mean?
Right.
You know, or did you want to add X, or is there something else we should be saying, or is there a point missing? And people get annoyed with me occasionally. I have no problem asking follow-up questions.
Yeah.
Because you know your job so well, right? But often people have trouble in their heads translating what they know to what their customer or their audience or their prospect needs to know. They're not always the same thing.
Right.
You need to tell them this, but the way that it needs to be said needs to be translated. And so I'm that translator. And all of those years of experience has allowed me to do that.
But thank you so much. This has been really, really great because, I don't have a lot of knowledge in your industry, and just to kind of learn how that works has been eye-opening, and I hope it has been the same for our followers and viewers. Faye, if you can maybe share, how can people find you? How can they contact you?
So I am at my computer a lot. So you can find me on my website, which is writefayright.com. My email address is faye@writefayright.com. I am also on LinkedIn, trying to do a better job this year with my LinkedIn profile and being visible. And I do offer, if you're looking for more information and trying to get a sense of what kind of content help you might need, I do offer a free consultation. So get in touch and we'll set up a call.
But thank you so much. Guys, thank you so much for joining us again on an amazing podcast of Klik TV. Please continue to like, comment, share. Please send us a message who else you think would be a great guest on our program, and see you next time.